Good morning. My name is Luis Hurtado. Millions of people migrate from a country to another because of a lack of stability, because of an abundance of violence, war, or just impossible living capabilities. For example, just predicted by the U.S. Department of State for the fiscal year of 2021, 300,000 immigrants were predicted to come that year, and it keeps rising every year. Many of these refugees have to go through harsh paths, and this ends up taking a large toll on their mental health and how they drive themselves in their new home. For example, taking a look at the picture, my grandmother, taken in 1936, used as a symbol in the Great Depression for the state of immigrants in the US. They were one of the groups that were hit the hardest. They were largely affected, and they were living in the conditions that they mostly tried to escape from in the beginning. In the modern day, this hasn't changed a lot. There is still a lack of resources and attention given to refugees to allow them to lead a successful new life, and especially for children to start their economic journey and adapt as better as they can to get the possibilities that they need for their future. This leads me to my research question. How have the experience and resources provided for children refugees affected the way and rate they are able to adapt to a new academic environment? And I found that the experiences and resources provided for children refugees negatively affect the way and rate that they're able to adapt to a new academic environment and overall succeed. Trauma and stress. As previously mentioned, many refugees have to take less than ideal paths, come illegally to other countries because they just weren't able to come through the legal means, and this takes a large toll on their mental health, causing trauma and PTSD in many cases. This can lead to many sociological effects on the family, causing many families to break up, and just leaving the mothers with the children or vice versa. In this case, just psychological problems with mothers and fathers can carry over to the children, and just overall worsen their own trauma. For example, when it comes to the academic perspective, a study conducted by Rabia Mustache of the International Islamic University found that the children in migrant families having mothers with more psychological problems showed less academic performance as compared to children in non-immigrant families having mothers with less psychological problems. Showing how all the trauma they have to deal through really affects the way they adapt into this new society and adapt into this new, academic environment. This being a given, parents are still a fallback for many children. Parents are still a fallback for all children that need help, but some just don't have this personality, this possibility. The number of unaccompanied refugees has become an increasingly serious problem due to war, political stability, natural disasters, and others, also called URMs. They experience all the issues and challenges that a youth immigrant needs to experience, but without anyone to fall back on, which adds greater risk to their overall stability. They must adjust to a new language, a new culture, and overall overcome the trauma without the help of anyone else. An example of this is shown by the article A Risk and Resilience Perspective on Unaccompanied Refugee Minors by Bonnie Ikonen and Joanne Constantine and others. They describe the story of a boy named Jamie, who is a Sudanese refugee that had to come into the US without any parents because he lost into a civil war. He describes his experiences with this quote: "I remember some of the lost boys. The culture shock was so bad that they were washing their clothes with a block of cheese because they thought it was soap. Many things that Americans grow up doing every day that we did not know. I grew up in the village. It's like coming from the Stone Age to a modern American city." Available resources. Children need various resources to be able to successfully adapt into their new environment, to learn the languages and to overall learn the culture, and to learn the culture and lead a successful academic life. One of such programs is the ESOL program. The ESOL program, or also called the English Speaker of Other Languages program, is designed to help students adapt to the new language, adapt to the English language and integrate into the curriculum as soon as they possibly can. However, in a study conducted by Thandi S. Ishabangu Soko of the Simons College, the program was proved to be less than ideal. There were many critiques given by the students of this program as a lack of peer education, a short duration of classes which doesn't really allow them to learn everything they need, and a lack of consideration for native language literacy, which many young children do suffer from. They don't know their entire language. Support from counselors and teachers is also an integral part to allow children to join and adapt to their environment, adapt to their academic environment. It is important for them to be introduced and to have someone to fall back on other than the parents that know the culture. However, in a study conducted by Ibrahim M. Kartoki from the University of Cairo, they found that these teachers and counselors alienated the children and often left them feel lonely and isolated from the rest of their peers, not allowing them to effectively merge with the others. This reflects into the overall thoughts of Americans on refugees. Where we can see in most of these cases, at least 50% of the population doesn't accept or opposes accepting refugees into the country. Finance and healthcare. When refugees leave their home country, they often don't have the resources they need or the money that they require to just come and lead a new successful life. That's why they need the many resources in healthcare and finance to help them move on. One of the biggest challenges that migrants face in the U.S. is the management of the health system, which can be very complex and cause problems. The U.S. itself also has problems managing the programs that they use to give healthcare to newly arrived immigrants. This is allowed in the research condoned by Roberto El Delgado and others from the University of Texas Health and Science. It talks about the massive Russian immigrants from the U.S. and Mexico border and how many arrive in need of medical help. Due to this process being very disorganized and very inefficient in general, they spend upwards to $4.4 unnecessary million to help these refugees. With more consideration taken into the programs and more financing, it could probably help them. It could probably set the refugees up with a good health care and give them some financial help for the future. In this quote said by Paul Spiegel of the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, ultimately, different innovative financing models will be able to provide more sustainable and effective health services to refugees and their host populations in the near future. So these are therapy and mental health aid. It will help children overcome their trauma of their past and just help them move on. Improvement on educational programs. It allows a better opportunity for them to fit in and adjust as needed, and better financial aid to allow families in general to get situated and have all the resources they need. The main problem here is money and the cost. The organization and the cost that it takes to make new programs would make a lot of money be diverted into refugees. And as mentioned before, it is not a very popular opinion that we should bring or accept refugees into the U.S. Thank you.
All right, 2 questions for you. First up, what evidence did you gather that you didn't use, and then why didn't you use it?
I was looking a lot more into the culture aspects and how do refugees have to deal with their own culture and assimilate it to this one. I decided to go with the other 3 because I just thought they were more solid and they gave better evidence for my overall argument.
Okay. And if you had more time, what additional research would you conduct on this?
If I had more time, I definitely would have put more time into the finance. I could not find much information on overall financial programs. The most I can find was on healthcare help.
All right, you're done.